Good morning and welcome to the Morning Spotlight podcast. I'm your host, Mike Hamm, coming to you as always from the Spotlight Studios in Morristown, New Jersey. But this is our final installment of our 3-week series from the PodMax global event here on December 4th. Today, our guest is a marketing professional with over 10 years experience with a focus on fintech and investment management software. Big stuff. After working for a large multinational enterprise software company, she came to fund that flip when there were fewer than 20 people on board. She's helped grow the company from originating $50 million to over $500 million in the past 3 years, doubling their customer base each year with an exponential revenue growth. She's also a new real estate investor herself. She's coming to us from Ohio, Kendall Bazan. Kendall, welcome.
Thanks, Mike. Super excited to be here.
Excited to have you on. So let's learn a little bit more about you. So you're from Ohio. You're on this show. I kind of gave you a little bit of a background of like the types of people that we normally have on the show and the types of topics that we cover. But let's learn more about you because that's always fun and interesting to get to know the person.
Yeah, so that's great. I love that you mentioned, before we got on the show, we were talking about kind of the demographic for the show. And I feel like I kind of fit right into the demographic. I'm a new real estate investor myself, and I'm in kind of that millennial age range. I'm in my mid 30s at this point. So it's insane to think about across the threshold of 30. But yeah, so my background, though, is a little bit unusual. I don't have a background in business and I don't have a background in real estate. I kind of just stumbled into it because in a previous life, I was actually pursuing a PhD in Russian studies of all things.
Okay.
So kind of wild. I spent some time in Russia and, I had this idea that I was going to be a professor in my life. That ended up not working out because, there's not a lot of money there. There's not a lot of guarantee that there is going to be, something like professorship in the future. It's really, higher education is a very interesting field. So I kind of came to the realization, and I was in my mid 20s at that point. I was like, wow, I'm going to turn 30. I'm going to have a degree that's going to be useless and I'm not going to know what to do with it. Yeah. So it was kind of wild. I call myself a recovering academic at this point,
Yeah, I get that.
So at 25, I was like, all right, I got to figure out something else. So packed up, moved away from my PhD program, which was at Northwestern in Chicago at the time, moved back home to Ohio. And I said, I got to figure something else out. So happened to stumble into marketing of all things. So I was a 25-year-old intern at a technology firm and basically just learning, what does EBITDA mean? What is finance? What is capital? Yeah. I had to learn this entire new language that I didn't understand. I went to college and we didn't have a business school. Like I didn't know any of this stuff.
Right.
So it was kind of a wild ride, and ended up, as you mentioned, working for a multinational global software company and got a lot of experience there and met a lot of really interesting people. But what I have been doing the past couple of years, and I've absolutely loved, is being in the startup space, particular online lending. So, like I said, learned a little bit about real estate at my past job, but here it's just kind of been a crash course every single day. And like, as you mentioned, we've grown exponentially the last couple of years, doubling our customer base. And it's, as I said, it's just been a total wild ride and learning everything from A to Z about how a business is run. So,
yeah. Right. Yeah. It's interesting that you say that. So like almost a similar trajectory for me. I mean, I wasn't getting a PhD by any stretch of the imagination. I have an MBA, which I don't really use a ton, but before I started selling title insurance, I was a college baseball coach for 5 years. Once I graduated I went to school here in New Jersey at the College of New Jersey in Trenton, and basically worked as a college baseball coach for 5 years. And then eventually, like similar to you, like kind of just fell ass backwards into the job that I have now, just because I needed a job,
Right.
Here I am. And it's like, I've been at my title insurance sales job for over 3 years now. And this year started the podcast and everything, but just interesting just to kind of hear like how everybody winds up, where they are. So was there something that like attracted you to marketing? Was there a reason why you went into marketing?
That's a great question. I found out later why I've stuck with marketing, but at the beginning, not really. I was looking through jobs and I was like, I got to get something. And the job that popped out to me was like digital marketing intern. And it was basically write some emails for this tech company. I was like, I can write. I kind of know how to write. I got a computer. What I've later come to realize is that, and why I've continued to be in marketing all this time and why I love it is because marketing is not one part of it is advertising, right? You think about Ad Men, Mad Men, that's one part of marketing. Another part of marketing is the brand, right? It's really good graphic design. It's an amazing logo. At the breakout or at the lunch session, we just had the keynote speaker, Chris Do from the future, right? He was talking all about what is a brand. A brand is an impression that you leave on people when you leave the room. All of these elements are part of marketing because it all rolls up to understanding who your audience is and who your core customer is, who are your stakeholders, and how do you best connect with them and communicate with them. So I didn't really know that as a marketer when I was first starting out in marketing, but knowing that now and how things like brand and social media and advertising, these are all just tools that we use as marketers, as business owners, as entrepreneurs. We're all marketers. These are just the tools that we use so that we can connect with that audience and that customer that we want to connect with.
Right. So you go from, fintech and that type of stuff into like fund that flip, which is, a real estate kind of focused business. Is it difficult to try to pivot and change the types of people that you're marketing to, or is that generally kind of like easy because once you figure out who you're marketing to, then it kind of just works on itself?
That's such a good question, Mike. I think there is always that initial ramp up period. So, I came from a commercial real estate company, and when I came to Fund That Flip, we're focused on the 1 to 4 family residential investor typically. And so there was a new language to learn. There was kind of there was that ramp up period, the learning curve, where I had to understand how these people are running their businesses, because it's different than a big property management fund or a big brokerage. It's different. Right. But a lot of the principles are ultimately the same, right? We talk about people make a lot of decisions based on emotion. And I think that's true even if you're the CFO of CBRE, or if you're, one of our personas is, part-time Pete who's flipping houses on the weekend, right?
Yeah, right.
I think that the principles around connecting with your audience where they are, if they're on social media, or maybe they go to real estate meetups, or they listen to a lot of podcasts, those principles are the same across the board. So it's all about, and ultimately you have to make sure that you're keeping up and check in with making sure that you're connecting with your customer. But I think those core principles are the same no matter what industry that you're in.
Gotcha. So was there any interest in real estate, which is why you made the jump? Because obviously you had a marketing background, right? And then you make this jump into, let's just talk about Fund That Flip, because that's where you are now. And we could talk the most about that, I'm sure. So was there like an interest in real estate, or was it just more like a marketing job that you saw and were like, oh, hey, this could be a new challenge?
So it was the former. So my husband and I were actually interested in obviously kind of diversifying our streams of income and adding, to what we've already established. My husband runs a couple businesses locally, and I was obviously working in the marketing job, and we were looking for some additional source of income, cash flow in particular. So we've done a little bit of, as a partnership together, we've done a little bit of investigating, how can we invest in something different than just looking at the equities market? We didn't know very much about real estate. So there was that kind of nascent idea of like, yes, we want to own property someday and get some cash flow. I'm happy to say that we do have 2 properties now that are investment properties, which has been so exciting. So I'm a newbie investor myself, but when I came to Fund That Flip, it was before I'd actually become an active investor,
Right.
which has been great and has taught me so much working at Fund That Flip. It's really influenced my strategy for, how we think we're going to invest as a couple personally in our lives.
Right. What was it like becoming a new real estate investor? Like, what was that process like? We mentioned to you before, like a lot of the people that do listen to this show are either buying their first properties or interested in buying properties. So it's taking it from somebody that's just like, because I feel like sometimes if you are a more seasoned real estate investor, you kind of have like a different perspective. But if you're somebody that just went through that first process, it's still very like, I don't want to say raw, but like it's still it's with you still. So like take us through that whole experience.
It was painful. It was really painful, but it was good. I'm glad we did it. Ultimately, I'm glad we did it. And it taught me a lot about how I can be better at Fund That Flip in our business. I'll get to that. But we had been looking for a while and as you mentioned, I'm based in Ohio. I'm based in the Cleveland area. We'd been looking at both the Cleveland and the Columbus markets. And Columbus, Ohio, if anybody is from there or knows OSU or has spent some time there, it's an insane market. It's just properties, they're most of them are off market. They're just getting snapped up. There's a big investment community there. And I knew that too, because we were doing, as Fund That Flip, we were doing a lot of loans to professional investors, people that were doing fix and flip or fix and rent or the BRRRR strategy. So it was kind of intimidating because I worked for Fund That Flip and I was like, well, I'm a newbie investor. So, it doesn't make sense for me to use the financing that Fund That Flip would provide because I'm just not going to move as quickly as most of our customers. So it was intimidating because I felt like I didn't, on the investor side, I didn't know where to look, and I felt like I didn't have kind of the keys to get the hot properties. So it took getting over that barrier and having the confidence to say, okay, I've looked at enough deals and I've looked at enough houses. I know the market well enough that I'm confident this is a good investment. So it took some time and kind of teaching myself how to underwrite enough properties to ultimately be able to spot good properties when they came up. So that was really helpful.
Right. So was there do you manage your own properties?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then so you say how long ago did this process take place?
This was in, I think, so we started the process in October of 2019, and then we closed in early 2020. And the closing process was painful because, as I mentioned, we didn't use any kind of bridge financing or anything. We actually went traditional with a bank,
Gotcha.
which was kind of funny too, because it helped inform how I want to market what we're doing at Fund That Flip. So one of the out of that came a tagline that we're now using, which is better than a bank, because working with a bank can be really painful sometimes. They're slow. It's onerous. There's a lot of paperwork that you have to get through. Oftentimes the rates are lower, so that's good. That's good for a lot of people, especially newer investors. But it can be a daunting process, especially when you're a small unit together. So
right.
Yeah. Right. We want to be better than a bank.
Yeah. Well, that's key. So let's so just for the people that don't know, talk about what Fund That Flip is, because we keep dancing around it. So let's just lay a little groundwork of what it is. That way we could talk more about it and kind of like your, process throughout the whole work in there.
Yeah. So Fund That Flip, we are an online lender. So we are actually a marketplace for the two sides of real estate investing. So it's kind of interesting. There's a lot of people call themselves real estate investors. And I think a lot of people listening to the show are real estate investors. And there's two types that I like to differentiate. There's the active side, where people are buying properties. They're actively doing renovations for a fix and flip, let's say, or they're doing a new construction, or they're doing the BRRRR strategy, doing rentals. That's what we call an active investor. So we provide the funding, the bridge financing for those active investors who are acquiring those properties and either selling them or holding them, doing whatever strategy that makes sense for their business to make a profit. We provide that bridge financing short term so that they can acquire it and do the renovation. Now, on the other side of the marketplace, and our online platform allows these kind of two groups to connect. We call it peer-to-peer lending, is the passive investor. That's the high net worth individual, or let's say that the institution, for example, a hedge fund or another type of capital management company, capital management firm, let's say private equity firm, maybe, those investors are interested in making kind of the higher, more attractive risk-adjusted returns that we offer as they invest in the platform and invest in those loans. So we're essentially establishing a marketplace between people that are providing capital and then the people that are actively going and using that capital to do their deals.
I gotcha. Okay. All right. So take us through how you go about now. Maybe we'll take it from two fronts. So maybe when you first get to fund that flip, it's obviously, it seems as though, reading your bio and knowing a little bit about it, that it was a lot smaller than what it is now. So maybe kind of like, I have a lot of questions and they're all like coming to my brain all at once, but I'm going to try to sort through them. So maybe we'll just start with, you get there. Talk to us about how, like, because you had an interest in real estate, but hadn't invested in any real estate at that point, maybe how you got yourself, like, the types of ways that you would market to those people.
Yeah, it's a great point. The first thing that I did was when I came to fund that flip was I talked to our CEO, whose name's Matt, and John, who's been with the company basically since the beginning too. He runs sales and he's phenomenal. So I sat them down and I was like, I need to talk to some borrowers. I need to know who our customers are. Right. So what we did was we went out actually to the project sites and we talked to, the people that were our best clients, right? They were doing deals at a certain velocity. They were doing turning over properties a certain number a year. And in the markets that we knew had been successful and profitable for us and for them. So I spent a lot of the time in my first few months really just establishing and understanding who is that core customer. And there's a marketing tool, it's kind of a tactic that we use. It's called personas. So out of all those interview sessions and meeting with those borrowers and listening and calling them on the phone, because they're busy people too, didn't always go in person. I developed a set of personas of people that we typically work with or people that we knew we wanted to work with. So maybe we weren't working with them yet, but we knew would be profitable for us. So I came up with kind of a list of 5 different personas. One is our part-time Pete. He's maybe doing it, part of the time on the weekends, like I said. Another one is somebody that's doing it full-time Frank, let's call him.
Love it.
Yeah. And I got pictures of these, like I got some stock images of the guys. So like you make them real humans and then you can start to, you can start to formulate messaging and content around their pain points, around their challenges, around their needs. So for full-time Frank, right, he's trying to scale his business. He needs reliability. He needs a funding company he needs the lender to actually show up at the closing table, right? He needs, Mike, as he needs a lender that's going to work easily with his title company that his title company trusts.
Right.
So as a result of that, it was really helpful to spend a lot of time understanding who that core customer base was. And then I got to be able to actually start to market to them. And it's always changing, right? So, 3 years ago, full-time Frank was our best customer, but in 2020, it might be somebody else. It might be somebody that's operating on an even higher level of velocity. So the key with marketing is that you got to keep improving and keep checking in with, okay, who are my best customers? Who's bringing me the most profit? And how can I best connect with them? And it's all about listening to what they tell you.
Gotcha. Okay. And then take us through, I know you danced around it a little bit before, but take us through like how your approach to marketing Fund That Flip has changed since you yourself have become a real estate investor.
Sure. Yes. So
which, I guess you would be full-time Frank. Would you be full-time Frank?
I would probably call myself a part-time Pete.
Part-time Pete. Okay.
Part-time Patricia.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, no, it's a really good point. I think so. A short-term strategy that we often do as marketers, and you'll see this with a lot of lenders, is they'll lead with the interest rate, right? They'll lead with price. And that's important for some people. But ultimately what we learned is that, if you compete on price with your competitors, it's a losing strategy. It's short term and it might work in the short term, but it can be a losing strategy unless you have, endless cash in the war chest. So what I learned was that, as an individual investor, as an active investor myself, was that I was probably willing to pay a little bit more money if I had had a much better closing process.
Right.
The closing process for me, because we had so much else going on. I was pregnant at the time, and we were thinking about, we added a basement in our primary residence. There was so much going on. I didn't have time to worry about the closing process and any of that. So for us at Fund That Flip, it really influenced shifting our focus from, leading with rate. Instead, we started talking about and showing proof points around our reliability as a lender, our relationship with our customers. So the fact that we go out and look at the properties that our borrowers are working on, it's crucial. Like, we want to become a part of their business. So that became really paramount after I went through the process of investing in a property. I learned that, I think people are willing to pay a little bit more if you'll make the process easy and seamless for them and reliable.
Right. So I'm also interested because, like I said before we got on here, I was trying to do research on you, but there really wasn't a ton out there because, like, the last two guys that I've had on, and so a lot of the guests that I have on the show, I know personally, whether it's their clients or networking partners or whatever. And the last couple guys on the two prior PodMax guests had, like, the one guy had a website. They had like 3 different websites and a whole bunch of content and stuff out there. So basically, I'm just pulling all this stuff and just getting to know you through this episode. So this is great. But I'm curious to know, like, what the process was like of when you get there, and it says in your bio that there was 20 people, less than 20 people on board. Mm-hmm. You come in, I'm assuming if there's that little people, you might be the only person doing marketing for Fund That Flip.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah. So then, like, take us through, like, the process of getting from where you were to where you are now. Is it because the company itself this might be a loaded question. Is it because the company itself just has a good plan and, like, the way that they're structured is the right way? Or do you think this, could set you up for a layup right here? Sure. Was it the marketing that really kind of accelerated this whole, uptick in business?
Oh yeah, totally the marketing. No.
I'm sure it had to be part of it. Yeah.
No, it's funny too, because there's a Peter Drucker quote. He's like, they call him the godfather of management and business theory. And he says that there's 2 functions of a business. It's innovation and marketing. Everything else is just basically, burning cash. Yeah. So, I think it's definitely both. Our founder and CEO, Matt, he actually founded the company because he felt in the marketplace there was a need for somebody, a lender that could provide fast financing for people like him he was doing investment properties as well. And he was getting, 15, 16% interest rates. And he's like, there's got to be a better way. So he's been in it since the beginning, and he really understands, the needs and the challenges of our borrowers. And so that core focus of understanding and listening to our borrowers has been one of the main reasons that we've grown that much. I would say the other thing, just in terms of thinking about marketing, is that we've gotten a lot smarter with how we're spending our marketing budget, because it's not infinite, right? You as an entrepreneur, you've got a limited budget that you have to work with. So I had to get really smart coming on as the only marketer, working resourcefully with limited resources. So when I came in, it was part of one of the reasons that I think that we were able to grow so quickly was I was really passionate about using tools that we could automate marketing processes. So, just coming in and using a free trial of HubSpot, or using Upwork, which is a really good platform for kind of outsourcing graphic design, because I didn't have the budget to hire a graphic designer.
Right.
Paying somebody that's in Bulgaria, let's say $30 an hour to work on my design projects was totally worth it to me, because I knew I was going to get a really good product, and it freed up my time to go focus on other things. So really getting smart about how we were spending our marketing budget and seeing what we could automate. So when after I did the persona work, I think a big thing that helped as well was working with my sales team to automate the outreach that they were doing. So outbound sales calls and emails that they were sending out, totally scrapped the manual work that they were doing and made it all automated. So it all looked consistent. We all had pretty similar messaging, and we personalized it, enough that our leads were feeling that they had that connection there. But
Right.
as much as we could automate so that we could save time, because, again, like time is money and you don't want to be burning cash. So as much as we could automate, I think ended up really helping really helping us get to scale, automating those processes over the last couple of years.
Right. So from a marketing standpoint, was there anything in particular? I mean, I know you said you had the personas and you, you're automating stuff and having a clear message, but was there anything, and this is over a 3 year span?
Yeah. Which in startup years is like, in 1,000 years, right?
Yeah. Right. So
years.
a 3 year span, was there anything in particular that was like, oh, wow, like this really moved the needle?
Really
it was
ROI.
something that like, was a big difference maker in that process of getting from where you were to where you are now?
That's a really good question. And we do try to track it that closely, right? So we know that like our Google ads are going to bring in, it's going to cost us, let's say $150 to bring in a lead from Google ads. I would say a big differentiator was, is really starting to understand the influencers in the real estate world. I don't have an ROI on this yet, but I know this is where we're going next, because we've spent a lot of money on things like Google ads. But what we've seen is that referrals are what our lowest cost per acquisition actually are. So the more that we do to incentivize customers to bring us their network, that has made all the difference. And it's the reason that our marketing spend to our revenue is a really good proportion. So, we've tried a lot of different things, and some channels are a lot more expensive, like Google ads. That's not going to make sense for a lot of people because it's a really, really expensive, channel. So I would say all small business owners should be very skeptical about spending money on Google ads, even to a certain extent, some of the paid social that you can do. I think paid social media can be a game changer for the limited, if you have a limited budget and you're really targeted in how you use paid social media, like LinkedIn posts that are paid, or LinkedIn campaigns, or Facebook or Instagram, even big one. I think that can be effective. But what I would say is that the channels that bring you, the highest quality customers, for us, it's definitely been referrals. And that's really driven our cost of marketing down in terms of our customer acquisition.
Right. Okay. All right. So that's interesting that you say that, because, this is marketing for me. Like I do this show. I started the show in 2020, which has been just a bear of a year. And my job is, from a sales standpoint, is to go out and meet with clients and go to lunches, go to dinners, go to drinks, go to events, just shake hands, kiss babies, that kind of thing. And obviously, here in New Jersey since March, it's been, an uphill battle. You couldn't do any of that stuff. So I did this, for better or worse, to put my face and voice out there for people to listen, and just trying to figure out like where I get the most quality engagement. Because and I've said this on the last 2 episodes, so the people that listen probably like, he's saying it again. The people that say that I have a marketing plan, I'm always very flattered. Like they're like, oh my God, like your marketing plan is so amazing. And I'm like, I literally have no plan. Like it is literally like I'm just taking stuff, throwing it against the wall and seeing what sticks. Because I don't really have a marketing background per se, but it's just been a trial by fire type thing, and just, seeing what works and seeing where I get the most engagement. And for me, that's been LinkedIn, just because like a lot of the people that do engage with the show, and, whether it was the LinkedIn video series that we started the Morning Spotlight with, or what it is now, those people are on LinkedIn, so like we're not like a brand, like Nike, where you could probably get more traction on an Instagram or a Facebook or whatever. But I just thought I was just curious, to see if there was anything that like really, really got you going.
Yes. It's such a good point, Mike. You can't do everything all at once. And you don't want to, because you're going to run yourself ragged, and you don't have all the time in the world, and you don't have the Nike budget, but you don't have to, because it is all about trial and error and figuring out, where am I getting the most engagement? And the great thing about marketing is that there's so many built-in analytics to things like podcasting. You can see, the number of downloads, you can see the number of likes on Facebook, you can see the number of impressions on LinkedIn. So that's why I'm very much in the camp of using data first when I make my marketing decisions, and being very, absolutely experimenting on different channels, but being okay that some of them are going to fail. So like for us, Instagram works on the borrower side, but not on the passive investor side.
Right.
On LinkedIn, it's more of a passive investor side thing because we can look at titles and, even to a certain extent, net worth, et cetera. So it is all about that trial and error.
Yeah. So, what has been some of the content that you guys have been putting out? Let's just talk about the stuff that you're putting out now. So like if somebody is interested in learning more about Fund That Flip, like what could they go and look at? Like what's out there?
So we actually have a pretty robust blog. It's learn.fundthatflip.com. And there's everything there, from educational newbie content. Like if you're just looking at your first deal and you want to know some tips on how to underwrite and make sure it's going to be profitable, we have that kind of content, and you can easily kind of filter through. And then we have content there that's audio. We actually, our CEO, Matt, has a podcast of his own. So we're in the audio game as well. We find that really resonates with our customer, because a lot of them are on the go. Like, know this, you're in your car, your listeners know this, you're in your car, you're doing chores, or you're wrapping up for the evening. It's just so much easier to listen to a podcast than to like sit down and read a white paper. Nobody's going to read a white paper, right?
Yeah. Who reads these days, honestly?
What is it? What exactly?
I don't even know if I can read anymore. Yeah. Yeah.
I know. I can't write anymore. I tried writing the other day. No.
My hand hurts and I just get bored. I get sleepy. Yeah.
Cramps.
Yeah.
No, it's so true. Cursive.
What is that?
That's so true.
Yeah.
So I would definitely recommend checking out the blog, learn.fundthatflip. And we're all over social media as well. Instagram is probably where we have the most engagement. So check us out on Instagram. Just search Fund That Flip.
Yeah, I'll make sure. I'm going to remind everybody at the end of the episode, but I'll make sure I put all the links in the show notes as long as you send them over to me. But for sure. So I'm interested to know, like, we just got the notification that we have 10 more minutes left in this episode. So before we get into our closing segment, I just have a couple more questions. First one is going to be more about you. So newbie real estate investor. Obviously, you mentioned that the closing process for the first time you're buying an investment property was kind of a pain.
It was a disaster.
Do you see yourself investing more? If so, if so, like, what is there a goal in mind? Like, is it, I mean, we don't even have to say it, but like, is it to just have passive income? Mm-hmm. Is it to be financially independent? Like, what is the goal there?
Yeah, goal for us definitely is that financial independence, and not having to, do the 9 to 5 forever. I'm really lucky though, because of Fund That Flip, it's like I said, it's pretty entrepreneurial in my position. So I got the best of both worlds there, but like having my options open would be good. I don't have a certain number of properties or doors in mind, but it's more, having that cash flow come in and having that financial independence. I think. Gotcha. I think ultimately, our goal would be, as a couple, I would love to own property internationally as well, and be able to just operate overseas. So that's kind of my ultimate goal.
That would be cool. Yeah.
Be on a beach in Portugal.
Right. Yeah. I mean, who wouldn't like that? Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
And then is there, I mean, maybe, this might be too much of a loaded question, but is there a goal in mind of where you're hoping from a marketing standpoint to get Fund That Flip? Like, is there the path, like, you think that it's going to go, that you're hoping for? Are there like numbers you're trying to hit each year, month, whatever, quarter?
There are. And as everybody knows, like 2020 threw everything into like the blender and just, punched us in the throat, but thankfully we're thriving out on the other end. Yeah. Throat punch. Yeah. Absolutely. We've got some ambitious goals. So we've moved past the $500 million threshold. But I think in the next 5 years, our 5-year plan is pretty ambitious. I won't attach a number to it, but billion with a B at some point, we'll get there. And I think that's pretty exciting. Yeah. More so on the on the origination side. I think we're very interested in the particular markets that we're in. So I don't think we have any, necessarily, we're going to stay in the markets that we're in currently. Like, we don't currently lend in California, and that's good for us. That works for us. We don't necessarily want to take that risk because it doesn't make sense for our business right now. So yeah, it's origination volume, and we've got some ambitious plans for it.
Right. So one of the other things before we got on here, we were talking about like your experience being on podcasts, because that was one of the things that I was interested to see, like the kind of content that you guys are putting out, because obviously it's social posts and all that kind of stuff. But obviously, you're putting yourself out there to help market Fund That Flip and yourself to a certain degree. I guess the Morning Spotlight is the 5th show that you've been a guest on, right? That's what you said? Yeah. So this is still relatively new to you. Yep. So like, what has that experience been like?
Oh, yeah. This one was really good.
Well, thank you.
No, they've all been really good. They've all been.
We won't tell any of the other shows that this one was the best. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I get to learn something new every time, which is, for me, I'm an eternal student. So I told you about my background. So yeah, I'm always going to be a student. But it's good because it challenges me in ways. Mike, you mentioned that I'm a little bit of a shadow on the internet. So this is a little bit outside of my comfort zone, actually. If you can't tell. So it's good.
I think it's been great.
It's growing me and stretching me in new ways.
Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, it's like anything. You got to get the reps in. You know this. You do sports. You're a coach. You know this. I do a lot of yoga. So for me, it's all about the practice, right? Yeah. There's not a certain end goal that you have to necessarily get to in this. It's get the reps in, do the practice, and be comfortable with the journey and the discomfort, because that's how you grow.
Right. That's well said.
I hope.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I mean, it's just like with anything, the more you do it, the better you get at it. And then just the more comfortable you are. Like, I was talking about this on an earlier episode, like so when COVID started, I have my own networking groups that I run here in New Jersey. There's a young professionals networking group that I run, and then I also run some real estate focused events. And obviously once COVID started, we couldn't do those in-person events anymore. So I started doing virtual events.
Right.
And I mean, exactly. Just like, I can go to lunch with somebody or go to an event and walk up to somebody and start talking to them. Like, I can walk up to somebody on the street and not have any problem talking to them. But this, for whatever reason, when I first started, was so uncomfortable. Because I could see myself, and I never realized like how much my hands move when I actually talk. And I never, it's like, I like look weird, like, my voice, like the whole thing. And it was like that big jump, that you had to make to try to like get yourself comfortable. And then I was like, oh, now I'm going to do videos, and now I'm going to do this podcast. And it was just like a whole big, now we're here. Now I'm like a PodMax event host, so.
Guru. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Guru, in quotes.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So I think we're gonna move this, because we're getting short on time. We have about 4 minutes left here. We're gonna move this into our closing segment, which is called Under the Spotlight.
Okay.
So we do this for every episode. Doesn't matter if it's real estate focused. It could have been anybody. Everybody does this, so you're gonna have to do it too. So they just listened to us talk about Fund That Flip, everything for the last 40 minutes, 45 minutes, whatever it's been. What is one thing that you want the listeners of the Morning Spotlight to walk away from this episode with?
That's good. So let me think about that a little bit. So I think this is something that I've tried to live by, both as a marketer, but also as a person. We know about the golden rule, right? It's do unto others what you would have them do it to you. So I think the golden rule plus is do unto others what they need done. And I think as a marketer and as a human, connecting with people is all about listening. We talked about that. It's listening, it's understanding them. And sometimes they don't tell you exactly what they need. Sometimes your clients and your customers tell you they want one thing and they might need another. So I think it's all about listening and trusting, and again, do the golden rule plus for others.
I like that. Yeah. Because that's what it's all about. I mean, like, I think that's where, from a sales standpoint, and I guess to a certain degree, a marketing standpoint, it's very, they're very closely connected, obviously, but like, people want to do business with people that they actually like, if you're a jerk, nobody's going to want to do business with you. I don't care how good you're going to get business if you're really good at your job, but you could be
Exactly.
like less good at your job, but have a lot of friends and you're going to get more business. I mean, that's my personal opinion, so that's just me, but
that's it, Mike. I agree.
Yeah. Awesome. So this was great. So for everybody listening, I am going to make sure we're going to find some links for Kendall. We're going to put them in the show notes. Fund That Flip, her LinkedIn page, the whole thing, email addresses. So make sure if you do have questions, if you want to reach out to her, ask her, whatever, that you do that. Kendall, thanks for coming on with us today. This was great. You would not know that it was only your 5th show ever.
Phew. All right. Imposter syndrome is vanquished.
Yeah, perfect.
Thanks, Mike. This has been a blast.
Yeah, it's all about the fake it till you make it kind of thing. That's
exactly.
basically my motto. So
love it.
Yeah. All right. Again, thank you. And everybody else, thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.